Imagine for a second that you're an architect, but not just any architect. You've been hired to build the most ambitious structure in, well, the history of the universe. I don't mean a skyscraper. I don't mean a space elevator.
We're thinking bigger.
Much, much bigger.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine a city that is a perfect cube. But this cube is 2,200 kilometers long, wide, and tall.
Just to put that in perspective right off the bat,
Mhm.
2,200 kilometers is roughly the distance from New York City to Denver.
Right.
Now imagine a wall that stretches that distance, but you point it straight up into space.
Exactly. Now, if you try to build that on Earth today, with, our current physics, what happens?
Physics happens. Specifically, gravity happens.
Yeah.
And it is not a pretty picture.
No.
The structure just it crushes itself instantly under its own weight. It turns into a molten ball of rubble before you even finish the ribbon-cutting ceremony.
Right. And yet, this is the exact literal description of the New Jerusalem found in the ancient text of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 16. For centuries, people have looked at those dimensions and just said, well, obviously it's a metaphor.
Because, physics.
But today, we're doing something different. We're looking at a paper that asks a very radical question. What if it isn't a metaphor?
What if those dimensions are literal blueprints?
And if they are, what fundamental laws of the universe would you have to break to make that building stand? It is a thought experiment that leads us down a rabbit hole I honestly wasn't prepared for. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are unpacking a paper titled The Physics of the Bold Judgments, Gravitational Reduction in the New Jerusalem by Mike Foungey.
It was published just recently, January 20, 2026. And I have to say, even if you aren't into theology, the physics in this paper is, it's fascinating.
The premise is wild. The author argues that for this massive city to exist, you have to tweak one fundamental constant of the universe.
Gravity. You have to turn the dial down.
But here is where it gets really interesting and honestly kind of terrifying. That same tweak, the one you need to save the city.
Accidentally explains the apocalyptic bowl judgments described in the same book.
It's what they call a unified theory, right?
Yeah.
It connects architecture to catastrophe in a way that is surprisingly elegant mathematically.
It suggests that the end of the world, as described in the text, isn't a series of random, supernatural magic tricks, but a cascade of physical effects.
All from changing one single variable.
Exactly.
So let's start with the impossible object itself, the cube. Let's do the math.
Let's crunch the numbers. So Revelation 21.16 gives us the dimensions. It says the city is a cube measuring 12,000 stadia per side.
And for those of us who don't measure things in ancient Greek foot races.
That converts to roughly 2,220 kilometers, or 2.2 million meters.
I'm going to pause on the scale of that for a second. The International Space Station orbits at about 400 kilometers.
Right.
So this city is more than 5 times taller than the orbit of the ISS.
It effectively sticks out of the Earth's atmosphere entirely. It's not a building, it's a planetary feature. I mean, it would alter the rotation of the Earth just by existing.
And the text also tells us what it's made of.
Jasper.
Jasper, which is a real rock.
Oh yeah, it's a form of quartz. The paper assumes a wall thickness of about 60 meters for structural integrity, which seems reasonable for a megastructure. But here is the problem. Jasper has a density of about 2,650 kilograms per cubic meter. It's heavy.
And rocks have a breaking point.
They do. We call it compressive strength. Basically, how much weight can you pile on top of a rock before the rock at the bottom just gives up and turns into dust?
Okay.
For Jasper, that limit is roughly 185 megapascals. That's pretty strong. It's stronger than your average concrete.
But we're stacking it 2,000 kilometers high.
Exactly. So the author calculates the pressure at the base of that wall under Earth's current gravity, which we call 1G, or 9.81 meters per second squared.
And the number is?
The pressure would be 57,711 megapascals.
Okay, wait. The limit is 185. The pressure is over 57,000.
Yeah. It's not even close. That is 312 times the crushing limit of the material.
So it's not just structural damage. It's instantaneous liquidation.
If that city appeared right now, strictly following the laws of physics as we know them, it wouldn't stay a cube. It would instantly collapse into a sphere roughly 141 kilometers in diameter. It would just be a very hot, very messy pile of rubble.
So if you are committed to the text being literal, if you believe this is a physical object that will physically exist on Earth, you have a serious engineering problem. You have 3 variables in the pressure equation: density, height, and
gravity.
Yeah.
And you can't change the height That's given in the text. You can't really change the density of jasper unless you change the fundamental atomic structure of silicon.
So you're left with one option.
You have to change gravity. You have to turn the dial down, way down.
And the paper calculates the magic number.
It does. To keep that pressure at the base within the safe limits of jasper, you need to reduce gravity by a factor of exactly 312.
312, that's a huge reduction.
It brings gravity down to about 0.03 meters per second squared. For context, the gravity on the moon is about 1.6.
Wow.
So we are talking about gravity that is roughly 50 times weaker than the moon.
Okay, so hypothetical scenario. God or the universe or, the simulator admin turns the gravity knob down to 0.03. Problem solved. The city stands. Everyone in the city is happy.
Well, the city stands, but everyone else. Definitely not happy, because here's the catch, and this is the core of Fauci's thesis: you can't just turn down gravity for the city.
Right, if it's a fundamental constant, it changes for everything.
Everything, including the solar system.
Right, the sun.
The sun is the big problem here.
Because gravity is what holds the sun together.
Precisely. And this leads us directly into what the Bible calls the bowl judgments, specifically the fourth bowl.
Which is described in Revelation 16 as the sun scorching men with fire.
Yes. To understand why, we have to look at something called hydrostatic equilibrium. Think of the sun as a giant, never-ending wrestling match.
Okay, who are the wrestles?
In the red corner, you have gravity. It's constantly trying to crush the sun inward, pulling everything toward the core.
Okay.
In the blue corner, you have nuclear fusion. The core is exploding, creating radiation pressure that pushes outward.
And right now, on our timeline, it's a tie.
It's a stable balance.
Yeah.
The push matches the pull. But imagine you suddenly weaken the gravity wrestler by 312 times.
He just lets go of the rope.
Exactly. The container holding the sun together effectively vanishes. The radiation pressure is still pushing out with massive force, but now there's almost nothing holding it back.
The sun expands.
And it expands explosively.
And when a star expands like that, it releases energy.
A phenomenal amount of energy. The paper calculates the binding energy of the sun. When it unbinds, it releases about 3.8 times 10 to the power of 48 joules.
I have absolutely no frame of reference for that number.
It's hard to even visualize. It is more energy than the sun normally puts out over 10 million years.
10 million years of energy.
But instead of 10 million years, it's released in a very, very short period.
Wow. Okay, so what does that do to us here on Earth?
Well, the paper models this. The solar intensity hitting Earth just jumps. It goes up to over 350 times the normal level. We're talking about 490,000 watts per square meter.
And the result of that is?
Surface temperatures on Earth would hit approximately 1,755 Kelvin. That is 1,482 degrees Celsius.
That's melting rock.
It is. Granite melts at about 1,200 degrees, so rocks melt. The oceans would flash boil. Organic matter, trees, grass, people just combusts instantly.
Which aligns perfectly with Revelation 16.89, which says men were scorched with fierce heat.
It's not a metaphor about global warming. It's a thermodynamic certainty if gravity drops.
That is absolutely terrifying. Is there any way to survive that? I mean, the text implies there are survivors because the judgments keep going.
The source actually runs the numbers on survival. On the surface, zero chance. The heat penetrates rock. You would need to be deep underground.
Like deep mines.
Deep mines, extensive cave systems, maybe very deep subway tunnels if they're sealed well. The paper estimates maybe 5 to 20% of the population could survive if they are already near deep shelter.
But you're essentially hiding in an oven while the crust of the Earth melts above you.
Pretty much.
Okay, so the gravity drops, the sun expands and scorches Earth. But then in the text, the very next judgment, the fifth bowl, is darkness. The kingdom became darkened. How do you go from scorching heat to darkness? That seems contradictory.
It does seem contradictory, doesn't
Yeah.
it? But this is where the physics gets really consistent. Think about what happens after the sun expands.
It gets bigger.
It gets bigger, which means its density drops. The fuel is spread out over a much larger volume. Fusion, the engine that makes the sun shine, depends entirely on pressure and density in the core. If the core density drops, the fusion rate collapses.
As the fire goes out.
It goes out fast. The paper calculates fusion rates would drop by a factor of over 1,000. The sun goes dark, it becomes a dull, glowing ember.
So we go from an oven to a freezer.
Earth's temperature would drop to around minus 94 degrees Celsius.
But that's not the only problem. The text mentions people gnawing their tongues in pain. Usually you'd assume that's just from the burn.
It is from the burns, yes. But the author makes a connection here to hypoxia and decompression sickness. Remember, gravity is still weak.
312 times weaker.
Right. And Earth's gravity is what holds our atmosphere down.
So if gravity drops,
The escape velocity, the speed you need to fly off into space, drops too. It goes down to about 0.63 kilometers per second.
did that fast?
Gas molecules in our atmosphere move nearly that fast, just by bouncing around at room temperature.
So the air just leaves.
It bleeds off into space, nitrogen, oxygen gone, the pressure drops. So the survivors underground aren't just cold and in the dark, they're suffocating. It is the ultimate lights out scenario. Dark, freezing, and airless.
This also explains the sixth bowl, doesn't it? The drying of the Euphrates River.
It does. Revelation 16.12 talks about the great river Euphrates drying up to prepare the way for the kings of the east.
Now, usually rivers dry up because of drought. That takes months, years.
But in this model, it's mechanical. Water flows in a riverbed because of hydrostatic pressure gravity pushing the water down into the channel so it flows downhill.
And if you reduce gravity by 312 times,
Water doesn't behave like a heavy liquid anymore. It acts more like water on the space station. It beads up. It can't maintain a channel. It just spreads out into thin sheets.
then since there's no atmosphere,
It boils. In a near vacuum, water sublimates or boils off instantly. So between the spreading and the boiling, the riverbed becomes dry almost instantly. It becomes a dry highway, exactly as the text describes.
it's fascinating how one change-reducing G just ticks off every single box of these disasters. You don't need 4 different miracles.
You just need one physics adjustment.
But we haven't talked about the main event yet. The reason for the gravity change in the first place. The city. The descent.
Right, the seventh bowl. The text says there is a great earthquake, unlike anything since mankind was on Earth, and then the New Jerusalem descends.
And the paper argues these are the same event.
The landing caused the earthquake.
Think about the mass. Even with gravity reduced, this city, this 2,000-kilometer rock, weighs about 1.2 times 10 to the 17th newtons.
That sounds heavy.
It has a footprint of nearly 5 million square kilometers. When that thing settles onto the Earth, the crustal deformation alone would trigger faults globally. Paper actually calls it a descent protocol.
A protocol.
Yes. The author suggests the gravitational reduction is actually a safety mechanism. If that city tried to land under normal Earth gravity, the kinetic energy would be equivalent to 5 million megatons of TNT.
That's not an earthquake. That's a planet killer. It would crack the crust in half.
So you have to lower gravity just to park the thing.
Exactly. It slows everything down. It makes the city light enough to land without sterilizing the planet, though it still causes the mother of all earthquakes.
Let's pivot to life inside the city, because the paper goes into some really cool speculation about the materials and the environment. We mentioned jasper earlier, but the source calls it glorified jasper.
This is a nod to the theological concept of glorified bodies, physical but perfected. The author proposes this is a metamaterial.
Which is a real term in physics.
It is. It refers to materials engineered at a microscopic structure to do things standard materials can't. The paper suggests this glorified jasper is chemically silicon dioxide jasper, but structurally perfect. No defects.
Which would give it the strength to hold up a 2,200-kilometer tower.
And it also mentions a thermal diode. What is that?
This answers the question of heating. The text says the city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God illuminates it.
Which implies a light source inside.
Right. But remember, outside the city, it is minus 94 degrees Celsius. It's freezing.
So the paper calculates that if the walls are transparent to radiation coming in the glory, but opaque to heat trying to get out, it acts like a perfect greenhouse.
It traps the heat.
It traps it to maintain a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius inside.
And what about breathing? You're 2,000 kilometers up. We established the atmosphere floated away.
Well, inside the city walls, you have a contained environment. But here is the cool part about low gravity. It changes the scale height of an atmosphere.
Just feel high.
It's basically how quickly the air gets thin as you go up. On Earth, at 10 kilometers up, you can't breathe. The air compresses down near the surface.
Okay.
But in low gravity, the atmosphere doesn't compress as much. It stays fluffy, it stays thick for thousands of kilometers.
So the pressure doesn't drop off as fast.
Exactly. The paper calculates that at the very top of the New Jerusalem, 2,200 kilometers up, the air pressure would still be 0.43 atmospheres.
Which is breathable.
It's about the equivalent of being at 20,000 feet, like a high mountain base camp. Thin, you'd get winded easily, but it is breathable.
So you can stand on the roof of the city, look out into the black vacuum of space,
Yeah.
and breathe.
Yes, but you'd have to be careful how you move.
Why?
because of the movement physics. With gravity reduced 312 times, your muscles are incredibly overpowered. You are basically Superman.
Oh, I see where this is going.
The paper calculates that a normal human jump, say, half a meter, would launch you 156 meters into the air.
You'd be jumping over skyscrapers.
You would, and because gravity is so low, you wouldn't come down for a long, long time.
Walking would be tricky.
Walking would be a nightmare. You'd have no traction. You'd effectively float with every step. The author suggests residents would need weighted clothing or, magnetic boots just to get from point A to point B without drifting into the ceiling.
It paints such a vivid picture. It's not just heaven as a cloud. It's a physical environment with a whole different set of rules.
And that really is the strength of this paper. It moves away from the idea of magic, where things just happen, and toward a new physics. It suggests that God doesn't break physical laws. He just changes the constants.
Which brings us to the outro. What is the big takeaway here?
For me, it's the efficiency of the theory. We usually read Revelation as a list of separate disasters. First the sores, then the sea turns to blood, then the sun scorches, then the earthquake.
Like a grocery list of doom.
Exactly. But this source argues that many of these are just symptoms of one root cause.
The adjustment of G.
Right. If you assume the goal is to bring the New Jerusalem to Earth, you must lower gravity. It's an engineering requirement.
And if you lower gravity, you inevitably get the scorching sun, the darkness, the dried river, and the earthquake.
They aren't punishments per se, they are mechanical side effects of the landing procedure.
It forces you to look at the text differently. Instead of just religious symbolism, you start seeing engineering constraints.
And it leaves us with a very provocative thought that the author touches on at the end, the question of scope.
What do you mean?
Well, is this change local to the solar system, or is it universal?
Physics tells us G, the gravitational constant, is universal, right?
Yeah.
You can't just change it in one room of the house.
Right. If G changes, it changes everywhere. Galaxies would unbind, black holes would stop feeding, stars would explode, the entire structure of the cosmos would unravel.
So the whole universe falls apart.
The whole universe would change. But here's the kicker. We wouldn't know.
Because of the speed of light.
Exactly. Light takes time to travel. We would see our sun expand immediately because it's right there, 8 light minutes away. But the Andromeda Galaxy is 2.5 million light years away.
So if gravity stopped working there today,
We wouldn't see the light of that event for 2.5 million years.
so the universal judgment would look to us like a very local solar system catastrophe.
Exactly. It suggests a transformation of the entire cosmos that we only perceive as the end of our world because our horizon is limited. It's a terrifyingly big concept.
That is a lot to process. A city that requires a new physics and a judgment that is just the dust settling from its arrival.
It definitely makes you want to double-check the structural engineering of any 2,000-kilometer cubes you might be planning.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have for this deep dive. We've gone from ancient texts to thermal diodes to the death of the sun. Just another Tuesday on the show.
Just another Tuesday.
To our listener, next time you look up at the sun or pick up a rock, just remember, everything holds together because of a very specific, very delicate balance. And if that number shifts, even a little, well, things get interesting. Thanks for listening. We can catch you on the next deep dive.